Hello, I'm Lauren Nahoda, and I'm going to be sharing with you some information about the anti-suffragists. On August 20th, 1920, the 19th Amendment was ratified and women officially got the right to vote. After countless years of women being treated as less than human, of them getting sent to jail for protesting, and a lifetime of not being listened to and being told to sit down and shut up, women could finally have a voice. They got that voice despite all of the other ones advising on why it was such a bad idea. This was a huge moment for women as they were able to vote in elections and other important decisions. It was also a step towards equality and getting the same rights as men, such as equal pay and other basic rights that were previously denied to women. Being a woman myself in the 21st century, I have seen that things haven't really changed. Women still get sexualized, they still aren't treated with the same regard as men, and are still getting paid less. However, I have also seen the effects of that amendment and how in a lot of cases women are able to work. They are able to hold positions of power, to be paid the same as men, and how mostly women are finally treated with the respect that we want and deserve. While the world isn't perfect, that amendment was a start to change, and 100 years later, change has been accomplished. However, it was a long and difficult journey to get the vote, and there were countless people against it, particularly the anti-suffragists. They were the group that wholeheartedly believed that women voting was bad and the worst thing that could happen. They believed that it would ruin the government, relationships, and so much more by getting the vote and getting into politics. In this speech, I'm going to explain to you the reason why both men and women thought that women shouldn't vote. Specifically, I'm going to talk about the overall generalizations, the way they persuaded the men, and the way they persuaded the women. To do this, I will be using the book, The Ideas of the Women's Suffrage Movement, 1890 to 1920, by Eileen S. Creditor to support my argument. Anti-suffragists were both male and female, and they try to convince both males and females with targeted examples. Overall, though, their main goal was to convince everyone that it would benefit the whole country if women were able to vote. Theology, biology, and science are the subjects that the anti-suffragists used to support their arguments on why women shouldn't get the vote. Theologically, it was because, according to Creditor, God had ordained man and woman to perform different functions in the state as well as in the home, or that he had intended women for the home and man for the world. Biologically and scientifically, it was because women were born with bodies and souls that were incapable of handling the strain that came with the stress of voting, while men's bodies and souls were not. While those were their broader statements, to get through to both genders, they had a myriad of different detailed arguments and consequences that would happen if women got the right to vote. Men, at the time of women's suffrage, were already the biggest group against women getting the right to vote because it would change the whole gender dynamic. Although there were still male suffragists, anti-suffragists had plenty of reasons against it. Reasons such as women didn't have the mental capacity for it, and it would ruin their home lives. As I stated in the beginning, women weren't able to handle all that comes with voting. In specific, as said by Creditor, her alleged weakness, nervousness, and proneness to fainting would certainly be out of place in polling booths and party conventions. However, it's not only her weakness that prevents her from being able to vote. Another factor was that a woman is too emotional to be able to think rationally to vote. Creditor also pointed out that the masculine represents judgment, the practical, while the feminine represents emotions. She jumps at conclusions. She would close all the bars and liquor saloons and make it a crime to sell intoxicating drink. Finally, men were also warned that, as stated by Creditor, women's suffrage meant pretty girls buttonholing strange men on the streets on election day on behalf of the handsome candidate, and things the committee concluded were of course unthinkable. However, there was more for the man to consider. Up until the point of history when women wanted the right to vote, gender roles were understood and set in stone. Men were to go to work, pay the bills, and support the family. Women were to cook, clean, teach, look after the children, and take care of the family. If that were to change, it would not only ruin relationships, but whole families. Creditor made the point that voting implied that women must become informed on political issues, and the inevitable discussions on such subjects between spouses would cause disagreements, which in turn would raise the divorce rate. Even further, Creditor added that women's suffrage would lead to the neglect of children by politically active mothers and, thereby, to increased juvenile delinquency because a franchise would inexorably draw women into political organization and even into office. With all of those reasons to consider, it makes sense that men would agree that women shouldn't have the right to vote. However, there were women that were anti-suffragists as well, and they had their own reasons on why. A woman's job, once again, was to cook, clean, and take care of their children. They made sure that the house and everyone inside of it was happy. Besides suffragists, most women were content with that way of life and didn't see the need to change anything. They didn't want the vote or any of the complications that came with it and politics in general. Women liked their role because they believed that they were equal to their husband. He worked, she stayed home. He supported the family, she took care of the family and the house. To quote Creditor, "Clean houses and good homes, which cannot be provided by legislation, keep children healthier and happier than any number of laws." Due to that, women didn't want to take part in politics or anything related to it, which voting would cause. Men didn't want women in politics either, unless it's training her sons to be good citizens and to inspiring and influencing man by being above politics rather than in it, as Creditor explained it. Another view was that women simply didn't want to vote. They had no opinion and didn't care. It was for their husbands to think about. Male antis and Creditor agreed, saying they wished to preserve women from this disagreeable task, hoping they could clean up politics without feminine help. It was, therefore, wrong to say that women did not have the right to vote. Rather, they had the right not to vote. Creditor added to the point, saying a woman was exempt from the burden of it. She was exempt so that she could devote her mind and her energies to those vocations which most benefited society. In the home, bringing up her many children, and outside the home, philanthropy. With all of those reasons combined, men and women were in agreement that women shouldn't vote due to her health and housewife status, despite the fact that suffragists didn't believe their arguments to be valid. In conclusion, the anti-suffragists made countless arguments on why women shouldn't get the right to vote. They believed that it would ruin the government, relationships, and so much more by getting the vote and being inducted into politics. Their arguments consisted of theology, biology, and science, specifically that a woman wasn't able to vote due to her weak emotional and bodily state and should instead concentrate on her role as a housewife and making sure that everything runs smoothly. To conclude, while the anti-suffragist arguments, looking back on them now, are widely untrue and even infuriating, they were also highly opinionated and not factually proven. But due to those arguments, suffragists were able to make theirs and prove them wrong. They were able to support their own arguments by proving the anti-suffragists wrong. In a weird and ironic way, anti-suffragists were part of the reason women eventually even got the right to vote. Thank you.